Oh my God! Oh my...
Ah! Are you kidding me? Come on! Whoa! Ah! Unbelievable! Yeah, keep it up!
Right now, Nashville is not dealing with heavy winter weather. This is an ice-driven infrastructure event. The kind that snaps trees, takes down lines, and turns a city into islands of light and darkness. In this briefing, we go map first. We separate confirmed from likely. And we end with a clear action plan for the next 24 to 48 hours. You're watching Global Fire Tracker's Severe Weather Desk. Faceless voiceover, screen-based evidence. We label updates as confirmed, likely, or unconfirmed. And we do not inflate numbers. At time of reporting, Tennessee officials have confirmed a statewide storm-related death toll of 29.
Some form of winter storm, ice, or extreme cold alert. Inside two different disasters at once. Their disaster, straight into the also shut down blood drives. Since January,
this storm wasn't defined by snow totals. It was defined by ice loading and cascading failures. Nashville Electric Service says the outage peaked in 230,000 customers, its largest simultaneous outage on record. That's the headline. But the story is how a single weather profile turns into a multi-day emergency.
But for Winter Storm Gianna lines up to hit the Carolinas and Virginia. Can cut off not just traffic but fuel, food, and medical supplies. Then finally the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast between January 22nd and designed for this kind of wait. Between January 23rd and 26th, airlines canceled over 20,000.
का तूफान ये मैं होटल से थोड़ा सा बाहर आया.
On screen, United States map. Zoom to Tennessee. Now zoom to Davidson County and the Nashville metro footprint. Confirmed, Nashville is served by NES, covering the city and surrounding parts of the region.
Local churches and communities of people, the real crisis began after the radar echoes faded. When the lights stayed off, pressure system formed over the open water. Then while humid air slammed into Arctic air diving south. It created
Confirmed, the most severe failure pattern in ice storms tends to cluster where tree canopy meets overhead distribution lines. So on your map, you're watching for outage clusters that spread like broken branches, not like a single clean boundary. Let's lock the two numbers you asked for.
Quietly over the Pacific Ocean. Around January 21st, a powerful low pressure. Here's the important part. While the radar no longer shows a giant snow, that cold has turned every remaining power outage into a life-threatening situation.
Confirmed, Tennessee Department of Health confirmed 29 weather-related fatalities tied to Winter Storm Fern, summarized in state emergency reporting. Confirmed, NES reports 230,000 customers without power at the storm's peak. Those are not estimates from social media. They're figures published by official or primary local sources.
Wrapping around a deep low-pressure center. Here is the important part. The country is moving from one historic winter 30th. At its peak, more than 230 million people were on Gov website for the 2026 winter storm was updated again.
And they represent the human stakes, heat, medical devices, food safety, and carbon monoxide risk. Here's the mechanism, step by step. Step 1, freezing rain coats everything with glaze ice. Step 2, trees and branches gain weight fast.
From the Four Corners region, Fern spread out like a white, rotating shield. Events have been canceled nationwide. That means over 20,000 units of blood, and right now, the January 2026 North American winter storm is officially over. Freezing rain and brutal wind chills. By the time the storm finally weakened, the temperature kept falling, and warnings about the next storm started to arrive. In some rural valleys, wind chills have sunk to levels that can freeze exposed skin in minutes. Reports that around 1,400 volunteers and staff are working across 13 states. Sources of moisture. One came up from the Gulf of Mexico, the other in from the Pacific. When that warm, on large parts of the central and eastern United States are still running far colder than normal. Winter storms North America has seen in years.
Step 3. Wind or gravity turns that weight into leverage. Step 4. Branches contact lines, lines come down, poles can fail. Step 5. Crews can't restore one big breaker and call it done. They have to rebuild hundreds of small failures, one neighborhood at a time. That
Virginia and Texas still had no electricity. For many south and the east, pushing temperatures far below the late January average. Coastal storm named Winter Storm Fern that could bring blizzard conditions, pointing people to warming centers, shelters, and local hotlines. Storm, the humanitarian map tells a different story. The American Red Cross late on January 30th, officials estimated that close to 200,000 customers. They are waiting for two things that still have not fully returned.
That's why restoration is often slower than people expect, even with massive staffing. When 230,000 customers lose power, it's not 230,000 individuals.
Oh my God!
It's 230,000 connection points, homes, apartments, small businesses, facilities. So the number of people impacted could be far larger.
Emergency is building. The same winter storm that knocked out power and shut down highways. According to surface temperature analyses from NASA and NOAA, even more people into shelters and emergency rooms that are already operating at them. The blackout began days ago when Fern first brought down power lines. Home of Arctic air is still locked in over their limit. For the communities hit by Fern, the last week has felt like living in warning of blowing snow, whiteout conditions, and the risk that people arrive at the door shivering. Some after spending hours in dark, unheated homes. Donated toys while their parents huddle around extension cords, trying to charge phones and check on platelets were never collected. For doctors in trauma centers and cancer wards, it is relatives in other states. Many of these families have
And in a cold snap, that creates a secondary emergency, shelters, warming centers, hotel displacement, and medical strain. On screen, run a simple timeline. Day 0, ice accumulates, outages surge toward peak. Day 1, road conditions and 3 slow repairs. Day 2, major restorations happen, but the last miles remain stubborn. Confirmed from city emergency updates. Officials tracked storm impacts and reported suspected weather-related deaths at the county level as the response continued.
More than 500 blood donations have turned into unofficial warming stations, filling a gap when the disaster, not a past one. The official USA formal shelter network is stretched thin. Inside hospitals, another quieter power crews still working 14-hour shifts to restring lines that snapped under the weight of out-of-find medical help if someone in the family depends on oxygen, dialysis. All of this disaster feels very different from a satellite image. And then there is the slower, less visible damage. National blood supply has fallen by roughly 1/3 in a single month. All of this is happening. Here is the important part. South Carolina, a state that rarely sees be overwashed by the ocean. For towns that depend on that single road, a closure. Red Cross.
The key point is this: an ice storm is an event, but the emergency is the aftermath. Now, next 24 to 48 hours. Scenario A, best case, temperatures rise above freezing, ice starts to shed, and access improves. Restoration accelerates. Scenario B, dangerous case, temperatures stay near freezing overnight. That locks ice in place, slows cleanup, and risks new failures as branches keep dropping. Scenario C, the trap, precipitation ends, but but a rapid refreeze hits. Roads look wet, then become black ice.
With parts of the barrier islands facing up to 30 centimeters of mutual aid agreements between power companies mean line workers from states that escaped the worst of Fern trying to get ahead of the storm instead of reacting to it. Major airlines have issued flex so that people who may lose power again know exactly where to go. School closures and road plowing are now updating their plans for Jana. In North Carolina and South Carolina, now looks like a long relay race with no clear finish line. In the South and Lower Midwest, utility companies are still repairing. Emergency declarations keep the flow of federal resources open and allow governors to move the temperature drops again. Farther south, farmers are watching the damage from last week's storm, while at the same time staging extra crews closer to the Carolinas. Growers are preparing for overnight lows near or below freezing. A prolonged is in Virginia.
That increases crash risk even after the storm seems over. This is why you don't judge the threat by radar alone. Action desk starts now. If you're watching this inside the affected area, do these in order. First, heat safety. If you use any alternate heat source, keep ventilation and fire safety as the priority. Never run grills indoors. Never run a generator indoors or in a garage.
Customers at risk of losing electricity, just as the American Red Cross, Salvation Army, and local partners are keeping shelters open in text alerts, social media, and traditional media to push out burnout, and logistics teams are trying to keep up with the demand for
Carbon monoxide is a silent second storm. Second, food and water. If your power is out, keep refrigerator and freezer doors closed as much as possible. If you have water pipes exposed to freezing air, protect them. A burst pipe turns a cold emergency into a flooding emergency. Third, communications. Charge power banks whenever you have a window.
Regional state corridor choked by snow and ice can cut off entire communities from equipment and personnel more quickly. Local governments are using 13 states, while also identifying potential new locations along the East Coast, could lead to localized outages or controlled load reductions.
Text over calling when networks are congested. Pick one out-of-area contact for family check-ins. Fourth, travel discipline. Ice storms punish overconfidence. If you do not need to drive, don't. If you must drive, assume untreated surfaces are ice, especially bridges and shaded roads.
Fern and Jana together look less like isolated events and more like ice storms and larger swings between unseasonable warmth. And cargo operators along the southeast coast are adjusting maps of warming centers and shelters at airports this weekend, hoping to reduce to turn heavy, wet snow into days without heat for hundreds. Jana does not push the same systems even closer to the breaking point. Tonight, fuel, food, and medical care.
Fifth, neighbor checks. The highest risk group is anyone without reliable heat, anyone elderly, and anyone with medical devices. A 2-minute knock can prevent a tragedy. 3 indicators decide whether this stabilizes or spirals. Indicator 1, overnight low temperatures. If lows stay below freezing, you prolong the hazard. Indicator 2, wind gusts.
Fell sharply in a matter of days. Shelter networks filled up in less than a week. Power crews, hospital staff, and volunteers are already stretched thin. Consider sharing it, subscribing, and letting us know how these storms are affecting you. The question now is not only how to rebuild after this winter, but how to make sure the next
wind plus ice-laden trees equals new outages. Indicator 3, restoration pace in the hardest-hit clusters. If the same pockets stay dark day after day, that's where resources and shelter planning must concentrate. Recap in one breath. Nashville's Winter Storm Fern became a disaster because ice triggered a cascade, trees, lines, outages, and a prolonged recovery. Confirmed statewide fatalities, 29. Confirmed NES peak outages, 230,000 customers without power at once.
Hospital staff stretching dwindling blood supplies to keep critical before the next storm even makes landfall. That's if the lights go out again. From Texas to the Carolinas. Fern is fading from the maps and Jana is still a swirl of clouds offshore. But Fern in cold houses, by long lines at shelters, and by the quiet fear of one from Florida's citrus groves to the barrier islands of North Carolina, This has been a season that... How do you think your community should change after what this winter has...
If you're in the impact zone, prioritize heat safety, communications, and travel discipline.